topic is knowing, consciousness, awareness, and mindfulness. So these are words you have heard that is related to our mind. Tonight I will explain what they mean in Buddhism and how these concepts can help us understand our mind better. So why should we try to understand our mind? What are the benefits? Well, we live in this world and there are many challenges. Every person's life encounter many difficulties, many unknowns, and sometimes we get confused. Sometimes we get upset. Sometimes we feel hopeless. Sometimes we hope that we can learn more about this world so that we can better navigate our life. How do I go from here to where I want to be? Now, to understand this world is hard. In Buddhism, we say that in order to understand this world and to be happy, to have less or no suffering in this world, we need to first understand ourselves. So one approach is to study everything in this world, but that is a lot of study. Buddhism says, study yourself. Understand yourself is the key. When you understand yourself, you can understand the world. But ourselves, as a person, is also very complicated, difficult to understand. I think both in the East and in the West, philosophers, thinkers have understood the importance of knowing ourselves. So in the Bible, it also says, know thyself. Yeah? Or maybe use the Greeks. So, how do we understand ourselves? Buddha tells us a key. The key to understand ourselves is to understand our mind. So, according to Buddha, if we understand our mind, we can understand ourselves. If we can understand ourselves, we can understand life in this world, and we can solve our problems. We can become wise. We can become happy. We can learn how to deal with the challenges in life. If we don't understand our mind, then a lot of things that we do, that we say, can actually create harm to ourselves and other people. So it is important to understand our mind. But where do we start? Well, that's what we talk about tonight. First of all, let's begin with an example. Shifu is speaking English. Do you all understand English? Yes? Good. 如果我说中文，你们听得懂吗？Some maybe understand, but most of you don't know what I said, right? So every day we talk to each other, we hear people talking. In this very ordinary process, there are two things going on. One, knowing, and two, conscious processing of what we have heard. So first, you heard some sound, yeah? Whether it's English, or German, or Chinese, or any sound. You hear the sound. You perceive, you're taking that sound information. That part is what we call knowing. You simply perceive some sensory information. Now, whether I speak in English 或者讲中文, that part is the same. You perceive different sounds. Yeah? But then the consciousness process that information. So if I were speaking English or Jianhu Shifu speaks in German, you can process it. You can understand the meaning. And it is helpful. Yeah? Or somebody else speaks to you. You understand what that person is saying. Sometimes you like it. Sometimes you don't like it. Sometimes people insult you. And you get upset. You get emotional, right? So that part is the conscious processing of the knowing of what you just heard. So if I were to say something very mean and insulting to you in Chinese with a smile, you wouldn't get upset because you heard what I said, but you did not process it. So, knowing, consciousness, our mind process every information, every experience with these two components, knowing and consciousness. So consciousness, the conscious part of our mind is very complicated. It is different in everybody. I say something, maybe you will be pleased, and the other person will be not pleased. I'm skinny. If you say, hey, you gained some weight, I will be happy. But for another person, they may not be happy. Right? So our conscious mind processes the information. However, it doesn't always process the information faithfully. Our conscious mind sometimes adds something to it. It's what I call post-processing. Yeah, it adds, like I've been having German bread every day. It's very good. In America, when you go to the market and buy bread, it's usually much more processed. A lot of additives. Doesn't taste as good, but it's cheaper. Still more expensive than here, but it's cheaper in America. So you eat a lot of food with a lot of additives, probably not good for you, but easier to produce. So our mind is like that. We hear something, but we over-process it, or we under-process it. We add something to it. And then we get emotional. We get emotional. And when we get emotional, we often become more irrational. We lose the calm, and we will not be able to hear what comes afterwards in a clear way. And we misunderstand each other more and more. That happens to everybody, right? So, to hear the sound is what we call knowing. That's the first part of our mind processing an experience. It's the most basic, bottom level function of our mind. And everybody does that. And then, immediately, in less than a second, our conscious part of our mind processes further, try to understand. But sometimes we misunderstand each other. Have you ever said something and the person who hears it misunderstand you and you get frustrated? Yeah? You think that I spoke very clearly, but somehow the other person misunderstands. Or the opposite. They say something, we misunderstand, and we get into an argument. We get upset. That happens quite often. All right? So, when somebody says something to you, and you feel, your understanding is that he's insulting me, how do you react? Do you react emotionally or calmly? Often we react emotionally, right? But is it possible to react in a calm way when somebody says mean things to you? Do you think it's possible to not always get upset? Do you think it's possible? Yeah? Is it easy? No, no, it's not. So, let us try to understand this. Can you control what other people say to you? No, you can't. Can you control how you react to what other people say to you? Probably. Yes? We should be able to, right? So, let me tell you a story. One day, a person who hasn't met the Buddha, he came to see the Buddha. But he wasn't respectful. He didn't come to see the Buddha to learn from him how to get enlightened. He came to insult the Buddha. He was jealous of the Buddha because Buddha was a very successful spiritual teacher. Attracted a lot of people, a lot of offering, and a lot of respect. And he was jealous. So he came to say very mean things to the Buddha. He started saying untruthful things. He said, "You Buddha, you say you are enlightened. I think you're just lying. You say you are a very moral person. You teach morality. You teach virtue. But who knows who you are? Maybe you are a cheater." Very mean things. Now, when somebody does that to us, how do we react? Well, we're probably agitated, right? We probably want to defend ourselves. Oh, I'm not like that. Why do you say such things to me? But how does the Buddha react? He just sat there and listened. He did not say a single word. He just listened to everything he said. Now, you all been into an argument with somebody, right? How many people does it take to start an argument? 2 people, right? You cannot start an argument with 1 person. So this guy is saying very many things to the Buddha. Buddha does not respond. He just sit there. But he's not ignoring him. He's paying attention. He's hearing every word. But he doesn't say a word. He doesn't respond. He's calm. He doesn't do anything. So after a few minutes, the person stopped. It gets really boring after a few minutes, right? So he stopped. He became silent. And that's when the Buddha said, "Sir, may I ask you a question? If you were to bring a gift and give it to somebody, and that person refuses the gift, what happens to the gift?" That's a strange question. Or is it? So that person was confused. Where does this come from? But it's such a simple question, right? So he just answered, "Of course, I take the gift back myself." Do you understand? Do you understand why Buddha asked that? Yes? Why?
Because insult is the opposite of the gift.
Very good. So Buddha says, so the person says, "I have to take the gift back, right?" Buddha says, "I totally agree with you. Just like you said, if you were to give somebody a gift, that person doesn't accept it, you have to take the gift back. All the insults you just given me, I look at it as a gift. I don't accept this gift. So all of that insult, bad mouthing goes back to you. Can Buddha do that? Why not? All the words that is spoken to me, I cannot control, right? But how I react, do I take it seriously or do I ignore it? Can I control that? Of course. Well, I have a choice here. If the criticism is useful, it's valid, then I want to thank you. You are my teacher. But if the criticism is not true, then in Chinese we say, go in one ear and go out the other ear. Don't let it stay in here. Go in one ear, go out the other ear. You let go. There's no need to process it. So my knowing, I heard the same sound as everybody else. But my conscious mind, I don't need to process trash. Yeah? Why do I need to waste my energy processing trash? Why do I need to keep that trash inside and become angry for days? It doesn't make sense, right? There's so many information coming to us every day. I only process what is useful, what is beneficial to me or to you. Can you do that? Did you know that you have a choice? If somebody say, you are stupid as a pig, to me, how would I say it? How would I process it? I say, oh, well, thank you. Pigs happen to be pretty smart. Yeah? They are as smart as dogs. Well, thank you for your praise. I can react that way, right? Or I can say, how can you call me stupid? Punch. And I go to jail. That is stupid. If he says bad things to me, he's creating bad karma. If I respond in the same way, I create bad karma. That is stupid. Right? Why should I create bad karma because you created bad karma? I don't have to. So Buddha says, just like an echo follows a sound and the shadow follows a person, your karma stays with you. That's not me. Just because you call me many bad names, insulted me seriously, doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Am I a good person or a bad person? I should be able to judge it myself or from my friends, from my teachers. If you're a good teacher, I will thank you. If you're not a good teacher, well, thank you anyway, but you take it back. So remember this lesson. This is a very important lesson because these days it's so easy to insult somebody on the internet, right? And then for no reason, and you hide behind the internet. And people get very upset. Some people even suicide because of all the attacks. They didn't know that they have a choice. Okay? So remember, some things in life you cannot control. What people say to you, what you see, what happens around this world. A lot of it you cannot control. You take it in. That's the knowing aspect of our mind. But the conscious processing, you have a choice. You should exercise that choice. Be wise. Be careful. Be selective. What you want to process and what you want to ignore. Okay? So, if we are not aware of this, knowing, I often don't have a choice. Conscious processing, I do, but if I don't control my conscious processing, I automatically react, then we will become manipulated by others if they want to manipulate us. Some people are good at manipulating others' emotions, right? or we get trapped into fights, arguments unnecessarily. And that's not worth it. Okay? On the other hand, if our mind stays clear, mindful, and process the information carefully, we can get closer to the truth, to the reality of what is happening in this world. So, it's not just hearing, it's seeing as well. Yeah? So our knowing uses our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body to receive those information. And our conscious mind processes all of that information. Sometimes, like for example, some people don't like rats or cockroach, yeah, or snake. Ew. Some people don't understand what's wrong with rats, yeah. Why are you afraid of rats? They don't understand that. Some people are not afraid. Some people are afraid. But the knowing is the same. You see the same thing. You and I, we see the same thing. But our conscious mind have taught us, have made it into a habit to react in a certain way. If you can become a master of your habits, then you could become a master of your life. So, the knowing and the consciousness, you know the difference, right? They work together. They work together every moment. Every moment they work together. But still they are kind of different. They're different functions. So the knowing, in Chan Buddhism, sometimes we call it the first thought. It is the very first experience you have with a situation. The first thought. And the second, third, fourth, and many, many more thoughts are in the realm of the consciousness. Alright? So, sometimes when we don't need to process it, we stop right there. For example, when we're meditating, does your thought wander away all over the place? You sit here, what am I going to eat for lunch tomorrow? Yeah? So sit here, you're not seeing, you're not hearing, right? And your body is not moving, so your mind goes into your mind's supposed to be just maintaining awareness, right? It should be just stay clear, but then you start thinking, because your consciousness is so used to acting all the time. It wants attention. Your knowing, it doesn't want attention. It just silently works day and night. It's a faithful worker. It just works for your mind day and night, all the time. It doesn't need your attention. But your consciousness wants attention all the time. Hey, listen to me. Why are you sitting there doing nothing? Think about lunch. Think about ice cream. Think about work. So second thought, third thought, fourth thought, 15 thoughts, and before you know it, dang, meditation is over and you haven't done anything. So first thought, valuable, knowing. Second, third thought, you have to watch it. Okay, so it's consciousness, like the processing factory. Now, consciousness is very useful because it helps us organize information. Right? We create concepts to help us navigate this world, to understand this world, understand people. So it's very important, very useful. But a lot of times, it works against us. So we need to understand the difference. Okay? For example, if I ask you a question, what is most valuable in life? What kind of thing? What is the most valuable in life? So everybody probably have a different answer. For some people, it's a Gucci bag. Yeah? For some people, it's a antique car. For some people, it's as much money as possible. For some people, it's beautiful art or classical music. For some people, it's reading a good book. For some people, it's a good meal. For some people, it's love, family, children. For some people, it's peace. Yeah? So everybody have a different idea of what is valuable in life. That is because your conscious mind has been conditioned. As you're growing up, your parents affect your conscious mind, right? Your conscious development. Your parents doesn't affect your knowing. You're born with it. A kid can sense. A baby can sense. But your conscious development, how you come to view this world, how you come to view yourself, how you come to view others, it is shaped by many people. Your parents, your teachers, your friends, the news that you read, the media that you encounter, yeah, the movies that you watch, the books that you read, or the good and bad experiences you had when you were growing up. All of that shape you, shape your conscious mind. Okay? A lot of times, they help you learn things, but other times, they help you develop bad habits that end up hurting ourselves. So who determines what is valuable and what is not? Is there a world standard on what is valuable in life? Probably not, right? Do you think so? No. Then who determines what is valuable? Well, your conscious mind. Your consciousness determines. But do you know the answer? Do you know what is valuable? What is most valuable to you? Well, we try to think about it, but we don't always have answer, right? Or maybe when you're 5 years old, you have an answer. And when you're 10 years old, you have a different answer. When you're 20 years old, you have a different answer. When you're 50 years old, you don't know anymore. That's what happened to me. You know, when I was much younger, the important thing in life is to go to a good college, get a good job. By the time I graduated from college, I wonder, well, maybe the valuable thing is to get a good job. So I got a job, a decent job, and then I wonder, no, that's not it. I searched for 8 years until I was 30 years old. I became a monk. I found out what is valuable to me in my life. But I know that many people are still searching. They don't know what's the most valuable thing in their life because it's a tough question. But your conscious mind determines that, right? Now, what about good and bad? We have good experiences and bad experiences in life. What determines good experiences and bad experiences? For example, let's say you are in school and you failed a test. Is that good or bad? Huh? Who says it's bad? Most people probably think it's bad. Those of you who didn't raise your hand, do you have a different answer?
It's a lesson.
Huh?
It is a lesson.
It's a lesson. Yeah? You could say, oh, terrible teacher, stupid test, and you don't learn anything from that test. Or you can say, okay, this test is good because it shows me what I don't understand. Right? That's what I need to work on. So when you make mistakes on the test or on the homework, that's what it's designed for, to tell you what you don't know. Not to tell you what you do know. It's to tell you what you don't know, right? So look at it that way, it's actually good for you. Yeah? So what does that mean? What is good and is it good and bad, right or wrong? Is there a standard? Is it absolute? Or is it not? So here's a famous Chinese story, a folklore kind of. In the ancient times, there was an old man who lived near the border of China. China at the border. So there's like other countries, right? Foreign countries. And sometimes they are enemies. So there is an old man who raised horses. Now in the old time, horses are really valuable, right? I believe in Europe too. So He raised horses, but one day one of his prized horses ran away. He just ran away. Jumped over the fence and ran away. So he had a neighbor. The neighbor heard the news. He came over. He said, "Oh, my dear friend, I heard you lost the horse. I'm so sorry. I feel sad for you." But the old man says, "Yes, I lost the horse. But that's not necessarily a bad thing." So the neighbor scratched his head. What's wrong with you? So he went back home. And a few days later, the horse came back by itself and brought back a female horse, a mare. So the horse came back, bought a companion horse. So the neighbor heard this news. He came over to congratulate him. He said, "Oh, my dear friend, I heard your horse came back with another horse. You got 2 horses now. You're so lucky. I'm so happy for you." The old man says, "Yes, my horse came back with a wild horse, but that's not necessarily a good thing." So he went back. A few days later, the old man has a son. So the son was trying to tame the wild horse. And he fell off the horse and broke his leg. Sad, right? So neighbor came. "I'm so sorry to hear about your son broke his leg." The old man says, "Yes, my son broke his leg, but that's not necessarily a bad thing." So the neighbor thought, he's crazy. So the neighbor went back, and then 2 months later, there was war going on between China and its neighbor country. All the young men were drafted to fight in a battle. Many lost their lives. But the old man's son, well, he broke his leg, so he couldn't be drafted. So what is good and what is bad? What does story tell us about good and bad in life? Yeah? So losing something, gaining something, breaking something, getting hurt, all of this, can you say it's good or bad? Well, when you look at life in a short span, right? When you have a narrow view, then yeah, you can say good or bad. But if you look at a long term, well, not necessarily. Who determines whether this is a good experience or bad experience? Your consciousness. Yeah? So another person could get happy and sad every time. But the old man, he was wise. He just stayed calm. This is just part of life. So another man may lose hope. Oh, I lost something valuable. Oh, I broke my leg. Oh, life is terrible. They may lose hope. But the old man, he never loses hope. He just lives life with peace in his mind. Okay, so we learn now the failure is not necessarily bad. Success is not necessarily good, right? So what does that tell us? What can we do with the things that happen in our life? Well, you make it what it is. Do you see that? You have a choice. Whatever happens, you can turn that into a good experience for you if you want to. If you don't learn from it, if you don't look at it as a learning experience, then, well, you go through life up and down and up and down and up and down, and you die in the end. Next life, you're not any wiser. Yeah? So, your consciousness is very important. It determines how you look at this life. But it's not up to other people. Other people can give you advice. I can give you advice. But then you go home, you don't think about it. Next week, next year, if I come back next year, you're the same. If you forget everything. If my teaching doesn't change your consciousness, doesn't change how you view the world, but if it does, then you get closer to the Buddha's wisdom. Because how powerful your consciousness is Do you realize it? How much choice do you have? Do you realize it? And Buddha also says, if you are able to perceive this world and interpret this world in a calm and clear way, if your mind is calm and clear, you can perceive the reality better. You get closer to the reality of what is happening. But if you are too emotional, or you always fall back on your habitual thinking, the old way of looking at things, then you continue to live life without learning much. Two people, I've seen couples, husband and wife couples together, they care about each other, but they fight all the time. Why? Because the husband doesn't learn the way of the wife. What is important to the woman, to the wife, what she values, how she communicates, he doesn't learn. And she doesn't learn how he communicates. What is important to him, they don't know. They just try to use their own worldview and put it on the other person. And so they can live together for 20 years without really understanding each other. I can understand the problems better in one session, talking to them and see their blind spots. For example, one partner may say, "Oh, you don't send me flowers on our anniversary," and the other person said, "Flower is a waste of money. You're so stupid. You withers in a few days. Why waste money on that? Why don't we buy a nice teacup set? You can use it a lot for much longer." But for the other person, the flower is important. It's an important gesture. It's emotionally comforting or pleasing. So the other person doesn't try to understand the other person. What is important to that person? Try to use his frame of mind to judge the other person without trying to understand what is important to them and respecting that. Right? And the other person, "Why don't you send me flowers? You send me a new computer." "I don't want a new computer." That happens a lot in Silicon Valley. Because they want to care about each other. He wants to send her something valuable, and to him, a new computer is valuable. But she wants something valuable, and that's, "Give me flowers on our anniversary." He never understands that. But she doesn't understand that he is trying to give her something important, because they consider different things valuable, and they never communicate with each other so that they understand why they are doing that. Yeah? So tragedies happen in families. They care about each other, they love each other, but over the years they fight on every little thing, and then they break up. So it's important to understand my consciousness, the way I'm brought up, make me speak and communicate in a certain way. Your consciousness, the way you're brought up, make you speak and communicate in a certain way. So when two people are in a relationship, whether it's couples or parent and children or co-workers, you need to learn the other person. You need to learn about the other person. It helps when your mind is calm and clear. You learn how the other person speaks. Otherwise, a lot of times we interpret something that they don't mean, and we don't know what the problem is. Yeah? So, right view, in Buddhism we say right view or right understanding is to perceive with your knowing. You perceive the information and then you process the information as close as possible, objectively, as close as possible to what the other person means. That involves not just my way, it involves understanding your way. That takes effort. That takes conscious effort. So the right view is when you understand the situation that is close to the truth, to the reality. False view is when you understand the situation that is not close to the reality. So, everybody wants peace, right? We want peace. But how come we always have fighting and crimes and war? Yeah? Why don't we have peace? Buddha says it's because everybody has their three poisons within themselves: greed, anger, ignorance. You look at all the fighting in this world, all the stealing, all the crimes, and all the battles in this world. Somebody was very greedy, somebody was very angry, or somebody is ignorant of what's going on, and they just drift this way and that way. So unless we learn to get rid of the greed, anger, ignorance, in as many people as possible will never see the end of fighting and suffering. But we must start with ourselves, because we cannot control what other people do. I can give advice, but I cannot control what you do. We have to start with ourselves. If we become wise about how we use the knowing and consciousness, then I can probably affect people around me, one by one, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. So, my Shifu, Grandmaster Wei Jie, he had this wish to teach people how to get enlightened. In Taiwan, which is very far from here, he affected 2,000 monks and nuns, and one of them came here to set up the meditation center. Yeah, I went to United States. I set up 7 meditation centers over the years. Yeah, we all try a little bit. So one person can change a lot of people. I know there's a group here tonight who was introduced to this meditation center by one girl, right? So you can change other people's lives. So now we need to understand better where our consciousness make mistakes, how we make mistakes. One is unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations. For example, you go to a store, you try to buy something, you try to buy a new phone, you try to buy a computer, but the salesperson, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know the latest model, the difference between this and that. He was ignorant. So you get upset. Who hired you? The store shouldn't hire you, right? Why don't you do your job? You should be able to do your job well. And we get upset. But that is an example of unrealistic expectation, because in your mind, you're expecting every salesperson in this world to know their stuff really well. Is that realistic? Oh, it's not. In the ideal world, but in the real world. Why? Because maybe it's his first day on the job. Maybe he only been here for a week. Maybe his boss is very mean and didn't teach him anything. Maybe he's getting paid minimum wage and he's not happy with the job. Maybe his mother got sick and he's worried. There's so many possible reasons why he's not doing his job that we don't know. Yeah? It's called cause and conditions. So many cause and conditions that make him being the way he is, his conscious mind being the way he is, that we don't know. So we have bad days too, right? We have bad days. Let's say you work in a company, and then one day you're just feeling very low or sick or sad or unhappy, and then people who need help from you, you don't want to help. That happens to us too, right? So the person can say, "You are not being professional. Who hired you? No. What do you would like people to understand you? Oh, I'm having a bad day. Excuse me, right? You want people to excuse you because I'm having a tough time here. So you start by doing the same thing. Maybe he's having a tough time. I'll just find another salesperson, or maybe go to another store. Maybe I'll buy another day. The important thing is you don't get upset. Because this is life. This is reality. People have bad days. That's reality. Accept reality. When you see reality, accept reality, your mind stays calm. Your emotion doesn't go up and down. Right? Of course, we still would like people to be professional, to do their job. But we cannot control what other people do. We control what we can do. At least I can accept the way it is. I have choice. I can go to another store. I have choice. Why should I get upset? Yeah? So another important thing about our conscious mind where it makes mistake is not knowing when to accept what has happened. Things happen in life. They happen because of many factors, many causes and conditions. And many factors you cannot control. Some factors you can control. Whatever you can control, you do your best. But still there are the factors you cannot control. And so when the result is what it is what it is. You have to accept it. Now you say, Shifu, that's pessimistic, that's passive, that's no good. Please understand what I'm trying to say. Whatever happened already, you have no choice but to accept it. It already happened. But what happens in the future, you may be able to change. So today, your kid, your children, is angry at you. Accept it. Don't yell at him and say, why are you not a nice kid? Why don't you listen to your mom? Why don't you listen to your dad? Why are you like this? Why aren't you nice like your brother? When we say that means I'm not accepting him the way he is now. We must accept him the way he is now. Because that's the reality. How he became this way, well, that's complicated. He became this way through our interactions over many years. And through his interactions with the school kids. A lot of it we don't know. Yeah? We just think, you should behave this way. No, he's the way he is. Because all the factors, cause and conditions make him this way today. You gotta accept it. But maybe next year, he doesn't have to stay this way. How do I go from here to there? I need to change some conditions. Cause and effect, right? If you want the result to be different, you have to do something different. You have to change some of the factors, some of the conditions. So if I continue to talk to him this way, to raise him this way, why do I expect him to change next year? He'll continue to be angry at me. I have to change my ways. I cannot control him. I have to change my way of interacting with the kid. Right? So you can do something about it for the future. But it starts now. By reflecting on our interaction. Have I misunderstood him in some way? Obviously, he understood me in many ways, but he's a kid. I cannot control him. So how can I communicate to him in ways that he understands? That's the job of a parent. It's a very difficult job. It's a job of a teacher. It's a job of a Buddhist teacher too. When somebody come here and say, Shifu, I have a problem. I'm fighting with my wife. It's not my job to tell him, why do you fight your wife? That's not good Buddhist behavior. That doesn't help. I have to understand. By talking to him, what he doesn't understand and try to point that out to him, right? In a way that he can accept it. That's my job. Whether he takes advice, that's his job. Whether he changes his conscious behavior, that's his job. Yeah? Same thing with every relationship we have with people. So acceptance is not being passive. Acceptance is the beginning of being proactive. Because if you waste your energy, this shouldn't be like this shouldn't be like this, why is the world like this, why is our government like this, why, we waste a lot of energy getting angry, upset and frustrated. But if you accept it, you stay calm, and you focus your energy and your intelligence on what factors, what conditions can I change to make tomorrow slightly different. You understand? Buddha cannot stop wars, but he can teach people so that when they grow up, they don't cause wars. Yeah? So we need to understand this. And our consciousness determines our worldview. We see this world. You see Berlin. You see Germany. Is what you see the true Berlin? What is the true Berlin? Yeah? Is there a true Berlin? Do you have ants here? You have ants, right? Ants that crawl on the ground. What is the ants perceive as Berlin? Well, they are two-dimensional. They crawl. They don't live in a three-dimension, so they have a two-dimensional map of what Berlin is like. Or not really, just what the little region, right? What about bats? Well, bats don't really see the world. It hears the world. It has a mental map of the surrounding through sound. Can you do that? Is that valid? Of course. The bats can navigate really well by using sound, not using eyes. So that's valid. They have a different view of the world. What about mosquitoes? You know mosquitoes? Do you understand mosquitoes' eyes? They have compound eyes. Our eye has one lens. The mosquito eye, the two compound eyes, each eye has thousands of lenses. What do they see? I have no idea. You can't even imagine, right? What kind of world they see. But we do know, what scientists know, the mosquitoes process neural information 4 to 10 times faster than we do. What that means is that when you try to swap a fly, you can never, you don't catch the fly because they see us as slow motion. They process 5 times, 10 times as fast, so we are slow motion. Of course, they don't fly very fast, but they can escape just in time. So, whose world is the real world? The human perception, or the fly's perception, or the ant's perception, or the bat's perception? Which one's world is the real world? You can't really say, right? Because their world is as valid as our world. So we see, oh, cockroach, bed bug, crush them. Cockroach sees humans, say, bad animal. They are the most damaging animal in the world. They are valid from their perspective. So we have to understand there's not just one perspective. Different living beings have their perspective. And who's to say my view is the valid, more valid than the chicken's view, or pig's view, or dog's view? So this is important to help us get closer to reality. All right? So that's how we need to understand this to begin to understand the world in a more objective way. So we are very much aware of climate change, how humans in the past 200 years have probably seriously damaged the climate, and then we are suffering from now, right? But we didn't know that before, because we always looked at the world from human view. We didn't care whether we caused some extinction of species. We didn't care that we caused the destruction of rainforest. We didn't care about that. We didn't care about the plastics went into the ocean and killed many marine life. We didn't care, because we only care about humans. But now we see that's not valid. That causes suffering. It caused suffering to them. It caused suffering back to us. So now, when we understand how the whole world as an ecosystem, we are taking the view of not only humans but everybody else, right? That's what Buddha has been saying all along. Don't look at the world from just your point of view. Try to look at the world from many different views. From the view of a tree, from the view of a fish, from the view of the animals. Then we probably would have made the earth a safer place if we realized this 2,000 years ago. So that's what I'm saying. You can use your consciousness to get closer to reality if you can be calm, clear, and objective. And we can do that. Do you think it's possible for us to do that? Of course. Do you want to? That's the question. So that's about the world, but let's go back to ourselves. What about me? Who am I? Who am I? Well, how you perceive, do you see yourself as beautiful or ugly? Smart or dumb? Average? How do you see yourself? Do you like what you see? Well, that image of yourself, how you see yourself, that view of yourself, who's responsible for that view? Who's responsible for that view? Well, which part of the mind created that view of yourself? Consciousness, that's right. But consciousness is influenced by so many things, right? So today you read this book, or you talk to this person, and that person affects how you see yourself. Yeah? If you live in an environment where people put you down and say, you're stupid, you're dumb, you can't do anything right, then that becomes part of how you see yourself. Because that's your consciousness. Taking that information, it doesn't know this is a bad gift, throw it away. You're just taking everything and form your view of yourself. Or maybe another person doesn't care. I don't believe in what you say. I know what I can do. I know I make mistakes, but I can overcome it. So that person has confidence. That person is not so much affected by the bad-mouthing or the insults. So he has a different view of himself. But which one is the true self? Well, let's see. Right now, however you see yourself, that view of yourself is formed by your consciousness. But consciousness changes. Does your consciousness change? Yeah, every day, every moment, your consciousness changes. There are some certain things that's been staying with you, the way you look at certain things that stay with you for many years, but still they can change. Or maybe today you heard something and that changes how you think and look, like this talk. So you change. That means how you view yourself changes too. So if you try to find your true self, you will never find it. When you think your true self can be found in your conscious image of yourself, you can never find it. You will not find a true self. Because the view of yourself changes. Because your consciousness, how you view the world, how you view everything, changes. So Buddha said, nah, that's not the true self. People make mistake. So that's why people get confused. I'm so confused in life. I don't know who am I. At some point in your life, You probably thought this way. I don't know who am I. I don't know what I want. I don't know what is valuable. I don't know what is goal in life. What is my goal in life? I don't know what's the meaning of life. You don't know because your consciousness is influenced by everybody. And that changes. That's not a way to understand yourself. So how do we understand ourselves? Well, we started already. You recognize there's a knowing aspect, there's a consciousness aspect, right? Before you attend this talk, you probably only knew of the consciousness aspect. You didn't know that there's a knowing. Now let's go back to the knowing a little bit more. You are capable of hearing things, right? So you have the knowing for sure. What about a dog? Can a dog know? Can a dog perceive information? Yeah, the dog can. What about a cat? Yes, they can, right? So in terms of the knowing, is there a difference between what a dog perceives and the human perceives? What difference? Well, maybe we have better ears, or maybe they have better ears. So they perceive more information, right? Maybe. But that's not the important. What is important? What is important is that the dog can perceive. The dog has a mind, the knowing part of the mind. They can perceive. They can know, right? They can know. What about a cockroach? Do they know things? Of course. Why? How do you know? If you try to kill the cockroach, it will run away, right? So we see. What about a chicken? What about a cow? What about a pig? They know. They all have knowing. They all have knowing. How they differ from us is in the consciousness. Because their eyes and nose and brains are different. So they process the information in a different way. Maybe humans have more complex conscious abilities, so we can think and we can write books, we can become a philosopher and create art. Maybe dogs and cats don't do that, but they do have conscious abilities, right? They can find the food that they need. Yeah, they know to run away from danger. Yeah, they know you like him, so he wiggles his tail, right? Do you know pigs do that too? Pigs love to be friends with humans. They are as friendly as dogs. Did you know that? It's true. It's true. So why is a dog a valuable pet that we should protect, and pigs we turn into pork chops? Why? Did the pigs volunteer to be pork? No. Our conscious mind determined some time ago. Pigs are food, dogs are pet. We determined that. But that is not reality. That is not objective. They have knowing just like we do. They have babies, they take care of their babies. They want a family. They protect their family just like dogs do. Chickens protect their family just like other animals do, just like humans do. So why is this food? If you put a little baby with a little chick, little piglet, baby pig, and a little puppy, do you know he will know that? Do you think that the baby will know which one is food, which one is pet? No. The baby will just play with everybody. So as when we grow up, our conscious mind, our society tells us this and that, but not all of it is true. Some of it is not reality. I'm not telling you all to be vegetarians, but do think about it. That's why we are vegetarians, because we don't see why pigs should be food. Why do I have the right to hurt them? Okay, so the things that we take as granted in the society, our conscious mind have learned to believe as true, but if you reflect on it, maybe not. So let us look at the difference between knowing and consciousness. Let's contrast the two. Is our conscious mind always active? Not really, because there are times when you don't see, there are times when you don't hear, and when you're in deep sleep, you're not hearing. Your conscious mind sort of goes to sleep too. So it's sometimes there, sometimes not there, right? Your conscious mind gets activated by stimulation. But when there's no stimulation, you meditate and you fall asleep. You're knowing. The most fundamental function of your mind. Does it go to sleep? No? How do you know? You're right. But how do you know? When you are asleep, do you still have the knowing ability? Yes or no? Yes? How can you prove it? You wake up? Alarm clock will wake you up. That means when you are asleep, even in deep sleep, the sound gets through to your knowing part of the mind. The mind can hear even when you are asleep. When you say you're asleep, that means your conscious mind is taking a break. But your knowing mind never take a break. Day and night is the most diligent worker. Doesn't get paid. You don't have to feed him or her. You don't have to feed it. So it just works and works and works. All the time. Every moment there's knowing. Every moment there's knowing. But because a lot of times there's not much information for the consciousness to process, you don't feel like your mind is working. But it's always there. Every moment. What about when a person is in coma? When in a coma, yeah? Do you think the knowing is there? It's still there, because we have many stories where, a person going through anesthesia, the doctor talk, but the person hears. Or the person is in a coma for many years and wake up and remembers the conversation the doctor says. The knowing is actually always there. I cannot prove it scientifically, but that's what the Buddha teaches, and objectively I observe it. I believe that is true. The knowing is there. Can the knowing change day and night? If I tell you something, if I teach you something, can I change your knowing? No, we don't. It just is. It's just what it is. It just is. It just receives information. What we change is your consciousness. The consciousness part of your mind, but we can never change the knowing. It just is. It's the most basic function of the mind. As in a dog, as in a pig, as in a cockroach. So the knowing aspect of the mind is equal in all people and all sentient beings. Sentient beings with a mind. So in all animals as well. It is because of this fundamental knowing part of the mind we say that all beings are equal. All sentient beings are equal. But we are different because of our consciousness. So in human beings, we have a bad person, we have a good person. Good person helps everybody, bad person hurts everybody. The bad person, is his genes bad? No. It was his consciousness, the way he was raised, he was brought up. So in Buddhism, there's no inherently bad people. The people whose consciousness have been trained and shaped in a way that's harmful to the society. But doesn't mean he can't change. he can change. Right? So Buddhism doesn't condemn anybody. We just say that if I have the opportunity and the wisdom, perhaps I can change you to learn, to use your consciousness, to get closer to reality. And when you do, you will see that everyone is equal. Everybody suffers. Nobody likes pain. Why don't we help each other? To avoid pain and to have more happiness. If you see this aspect, you see this part of our mind and everybody's mind, you know that sentient beings are equal. That's not a theory. That is not a philosophy. It's a fact because everybody has knowing. But the conscious mind is different. So like tigers, bear, they may kill people. So they are bad animals, right? No, because it's the karma. They have to do that. They have to hunt and kill. It's their karma in this life. But in next life, they don't have to be like that. So we don't think that anybody is a bad person, but they can create bad karma. People can create very bad karma when their conscious mind is misguided. For example, to think that certain people, certain race is inferior, and therefore they should be slave, or therefore I can kill them. We don't treat them as human beings. That is a human opinion from the consciousness, right? Today, we can say, well, that's not true. Because, everybody has skin and flesh and bones, and then everybody have the 26 chromosomes, right? We should be treated as equal. But sometime in the ancient times, and even today in some people's mind, the consciousness was given this idea. Some people are inferior. Some people are not worth as much as we are. That is far from reality. That is not a reality. The reality is, no matter what your skin is, what country you're from, you want to live. You want to eat. You want to survive. You want to raise families. Or you want to become a monk. So, you look at every country. The basic needs of every citizen in any country is to have food. Right? To have food. How are we different? How are some people inferior? So, to think that way is a false view. A view in our consciousness that is not based on reality. That's what gets dangerous. We need to understand this. If we don't understand this, we don't know how to teach people to have the right views. And we will never end suffering. Okay? So, the consciousness part of our mind, we can discern, we can discriminate, we can judge, we can feel, we have emotions, and we're shaped by everybody. We can use it in a very wise way, in an intelligent way to, we build houses, we grow food, we create technology, we learn science and other knowledges. That's from the conscious mind. We can use it in such a way. Einstein discovered E equals mc squared. So he discovered that, and when some people use it to generate nuclear power plant, to generate energy, some people use that to make an atomic bomb. Use that knowledge in a way for destruction. It's a consciousness. So consciousness is very powerful, very powerful. And because it's powerful, we need to be very careful. We need to understand it better. In our future talks, later, we'll talk more about the makeup, the details of the consciousness, but today we cannot. So, from the consciousness, we form the idea of self. In Buddhism, we call it the ego self. It's not the true self. Okay? So we need to understand a little bit better about who we really are. One part is the knowing, which most people have ignored. The knowing, it doesn't seem to do much, but it's so important because it helps us understand we are equal fundamentally. And it helps us understand. And look at the knowing. The knowing is always present. Consciousness not. It's impermanent. The knowing is unmoving. It doesn't get emotional. It's calm. We call it calm, but it's just there, right? It's not affected by whatever happens. It's not affected by anything that happens. It just perceives, quietly perceives information. So that's kind of a nice quality. That's why when you meditate and you let your conscious mind rest, you gain to a calm, deeply serene state because you're more in touch with your knowing. And that's part of you already. It's part of you already. So everybody can meditate. But it does take effort to let the conscious mind rest because all our lives we learn to use the consciousness all the time. We don't know how to let it rest. That's what meditation is for. It's not to create something new, some new samadhi or deep meditating state. It's return to that knowing simply by resting your conscious mind. So you can return to that state, which when you do, it is really beautiful. It's an entirely different kind of experience. It's calm, serene, peaceful. Peaceful because there's no disturbance. When you learn to let your conscious mind rest and not be disturbed, for example, when somebody insults you, you practice, it's a gift. I don't like this gift, let it go. Then you can remain calm. And your mind can get closer to that peaceful, that inherent peacefulness. Do you see that? It's not like my IQ is not high enough, so I cannot get a PhD. It's not like that. People have different IQs. Some people can never learn certain things. But then the knowing is already within you. It's right. It's already there every moment. All you have to do is return to it. That's why Buddha says everybody can get enlightened. Enlightened means that you return to the calm knowing, serenity, and when you do, your mind is very clear. And when your mind is very clear, it's like water. When the water is wavy, there's a lot of waves. You don't see anything inside the lake. But when the lake is very calm, you see everything in the water. When your mind is calm, you see everything within yourself. And you see the truth outside. But it's something you already have. You just need to uncover it. It's like a beautiful diamond that's covered in mud. The mud is the consciousness. So you don't know you have that shiny, beautiful clarity that can perceive the world truthfully. Because our conscious mind is always taking over. So when you let the conscious mind rest by practicing mindfulness and counting the breath and quieting the mind, you get more in touch with that part of your mind. You experience that beautiful serenity, that peace. And most importantly, your mind becomes more clear. You see more about yourself and the surrounding. You begin to see more about the reality. The reality. When next time you see a pig, you don't think, oh, pork. No, you see an animal that has feelings. It's right there in front of us, but we didn't see it because our conscious mind is conditioned in a certain way. Right? You didn't think of pigs as pets, right? But there are people who actually keep pigs as pets, and they know you can give the pig a name just like a dog. You call the name, he comes. And they are very friendly. They love to be friends with humans. But we didn't perceive that. Because our conscious mind is biased in a certain way. But when your mind is calm and clear, you perceive, hey, wait a minute, one day you realize, wait a minute, what's the difference between a pig and a dog? Well, they look different, right? But why is one killed by the millions every day and the other is protected every day? It doesn't make sense. It's not the objective reality. And your consciousness, another aspect is your consciousness changes all the time. But your knowing never changes. It's just the way it is. It just is. There's nothing to change. It's not black or white, or tall or short, or fat or skinny. Yeah? Your mind, your knowing is, it doesn't have any characteristics, any physical traits or any mental traits even. It just is. So that's why it's so undetectable. It's difficult to detect that. Okay, so we learned the contrast. So which one is you? Which one is the true you? Who thinks that the knowing is the true you? Who thinks the consciousness is the true you? Well, all of you who didn't answer, what's your answer? Any other answer?
What was the question?
The question is, which is the true you? Is the knowing true you or the consciousness the true you?
Knowing is true.
Knowing is true, okay. So we have one answer. And who thinks the consciousness is true you? Nobody thinks that way now. Right? Well, the answer is that both are part of you. Both are part of you. It's just that one is unchanging, one is changing. You know? One part is unchanging, one is changing. But both has been you all the time. But, so if you try to find a fixed true you, a permanent true you, you will never find it. Why? Because there's a part that always changes. That's the problem. The problem is that we're trying to find a true you, thinking that there's something permanent, fixed, absolute within me, within this that is the true you. You will never find it. Yeah, there is that part. There is that part that's never changing, that's ever present. But it always works with the consciousness. It works intimately with the consciousness. You cannot separate the two, actually. It's like water and waves. You cannot separate waves from water, right? The waves, let's say you have a basin and you have water and you stir the water. The water moves back and forth, right? But the water body stays the same. So it's kind of difficult. You need to sort of quiet and contemplate on this. Okay? But from the knowing aspect, we know that all living beings are equal, fundamentally. From the changing aspect, we know that we can change our lives, we can change our view, we can learn, or we can do very bad things. That's who we are. So it's okay to get used to an I that changes. It's okay. But it's important to know that you have choices, how you change. Okay? So both are essential aspects of our being. So today's talk was what? Knowing, consciousness. What were the other two? Who remembers the other two things I haven't talked about yet? The talk is almost over. Awareness and mindfulness, right? Shifu, you haven't talked about mindfulness yet. It's easy now. Because awareness is a part of the consciousness that reflects and checks things. So you already know knowing, you know something about consciousness, right? You know there's some problems with consciousness, some powers of the consciousness, right? So now you gotta remember it. That's awareness. Next time somebody says something mean to you, you are aware. Wait a minute. I don't have to react with anger. That's awareness. So you use what you learn. You use the knowledge that you learn today or from Jianhu Shifu, and then using in everyday life. Say, hey, wait a minute. Now I don't have to react this way. I can reflect on it. I can decide how I can make use of my choices. That is awareness. You apply the teaching in a way that is beneficial, help you get closer to reality. Let me exercise my choice. Let me reject that gift. Right? So then that is awareness. Awareness is just part of consciousness. Consciousness can do many things. And awareness is one of the powerful and useful things. You become aware, you detect, you check. Wait a minute. Why am I behaving this way? This doesn't make sense. Let me behave in a different way. In a way that Shifu teaches us. Or Buddha teaches. Then you are exercising awareness. And when you exercise awareness, you are on the way to awakening, to enlightenment. You start on the way to enlightenment. Does that make sense? But there's a problem. If you're only aware for a brief moment and you go back to the old habit, does it help? No. You say, I'm sitting here in meditation 30 minutes, I'm aware for 1 minute, and then the other 29 minutes, I'm in my whole wandering thoughts. That doesn't work. So that's mindfulness come in. Sustained awareness, sustained the right awareness is mindfulness. So you got to keep that awareness, the right awareness. Oh, it's a gift. So let me stay calm. Let me not react. Thank you for your words. And you just walk away. All this time, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you've sustained that awareness. That's called mindfulness. Right? That's mindfulness. And when you practice this way, once, twice, 10 times, you become better and better and better. Eventually, you unlearn the bad habit of reacting with emotions in a bad way. But you react with calmness and wisdom. But if you're only aware for a moment, that doesn't help very much. You got to sustain that awareness. Right? So, let me give you a story. This is supposed to be a real story by an author. There was a chubby kid. He was 6th grade. He's kind of chubby. One day he was talking to his friend. He said, I want to play on a school soccer team. Play sports, soccer team. But not too far away, there was a classmate who was much bigger and strong, athletic type. When he heard this chubby kid saying he wanted to join the soccer team, he laughed at him. He said, that's a joke. You can't kick soccer. But that happens in school all the time, right? People bully you. So let's call chubby kid and bully, all right? So the bully laughed at him. Now, if you were the chubby kid and somebody laughed at you in school and he's bigger than you, how do you react? Well, usually with emotions, right? Either you fight and get beat up, or you go tell the teacher, or you get really upset, you cry. It's not a good experience. But that's because your conscious mind have not learned to be wise. Let us return to the knowing. Knowing, stay calm, perceive the information. So here's what the kid actually said. The kid actually said, you're right. I'm not good at soccer. I'm not good as you. I hope that one day I can kick the ball as good as you do. However, I'm pretty good at art. I can paint and draw. If you ever need to paint or draw something, I'll be happy to help. That's what he said. The kid was not upset. He just calmly said that. And you know what? He did. You're right. I don't kick I don't play soccer as good as you. It's a fact. Why do we get upset at a fact? Even though, the tone of voice is very mean, right? But still, it's a fact. So he said, he just stating the fact, you're right. He just accepts the fact. He accepts the situation. And he says, I hope that one day I can be as good as you. That's also a fact. You would like to kick the ball better. That's also a fact. But when he says that, he made a big difference, because when the bully was laughing at him, they were on two opposite sides. Me against you. I want to put you down to make me feel better. That's what the bully thinks, right? They feel superior by putting other people down. But when the kid agreed with him, oh, you're a good soccer player. I'm not as good as you. That animosity, that mentality went away. Oh, you're on the same side as me now, because you're agreeing with me. Right? You agree with me. So we are now on the opposite side now. With one sentence, he turned the two of them from opposite side to be on the same side. That is very smart. So that animosity, that wanting to laugh at him, went away. So the bully reacted in a different way. He said, "Oh, you are pretty cool. Yeah, let's pick someday. I'll show you how to kick the ball." Now this chubby kid, I think he's more mature than many of us, right? And he's not kissing up to him. He's just stating a fact. But he accepts the reality that you are better than me in sports. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with accepting that other people are better than me in some aspect? But notice he also said, I'm good at art, right? So his confidence is not destroyed. And many of us feel that if I admit that I'm worse than you in something, then I'm no good, which is not the reality. The reality is everybody has different sides. You're good at something, he's good at something, I'm good at something else. And I'm not good at something, and he's not good at, and that's okay. It's nothing to laugh at. Let's just accept that. We see that different people have different aspects, right? And you are good at something, and you're not good at something, and same as here. So why compare? But if you're good at something that I'm not, I can learn from you. If I'm good at something you're not, if you want, I'll be able to help you. That's a fact. So where's the enemy? There's no enemy. So what happened here? When the bully heard the chubby kid say he wanted to join the soccer team, he heard the sound. The knowing was at work, right? Everybody else heard the same word. But the bully reacted with his conscious mind, wanting to be superior by putting other people down. That was his conscious state. He grew up to be that way. Right? He grew up to be that way. That's the reality right now. And when he said these mean things to the boy heard his words, heard the bully's words. His knowing heard the words, right? His conscious mind processed in a very different way from most other kids. His consciousness learned to process information in a way that accepts reality. It's stupid to make enemies. Can I make a friend out of this guy? That's how his consciousness worked. And he must have done it before. He must be raised this way, or he's used to think that way, so it comes out naturally. You see? So the bully's consciousness works in a way that is discriminating and off-putting and hurtful. The kid's consciousness works in a way that can eliminate differences and create harmony. Make a friend out of a bully. That's how powerful the consciousness can be, either in a good way or in a bad way. Yeah? So that's why it's important to maintain calmness and clarity, that mindfulness, your sustained awareness of what is going on, what are my choices, Can I react in a different way? If I reacted this way in the past and that wasn't happy, that was kind of painful, then I probably should react in a different way, and that's within my choice. You understand? Make sense? So, today I gave introduction to understanding the mind, knowing, consciousness. Very powerful. Knowing is also very powerful. If you can become very calm and clear, then the knowing is more powerful than you imagine. You can perceive things that our ordinary mind cannot. You see, experts in different fields, they can perceive fine details that we can't, right? It's because they're trained that way. But it's the knowing ability. If you cannot know the information in the first place, how can you process it? So our knowing is infinitely more powerful, but we can't explain that right now. But the consciousness is the key to turn things around in our life. No matter what people do to us or say to us, I can look at it as a bad thing, or I can look at it as a grateful experience, something to be grateful about. I have this opportunity to learn from that experience. Okay? And the key, and you start doing that by awareness, by learning something about your consciousness and then reflecting on your experience. That's awareness. Detect the situation, and then you choose to react in a different way. When you do, you begin to change your life. You begin to change your future. And that takes sustained awareness, which is mindfulness. Okay? I will stop here. Do we take a break? Or do we have time for questions, or what do we do now?
Also questions without a break.
Yeah, it's getting kind of late. I'm sorry for that. So maybe a couple questions and we'll call it a day. Yes.
Ich habe das Übersetzung. Ich habe verstanden, dass die Essenz unverändert ist. Sag's nochmal bitte. Dass die Essenz scheint unverändert ist. Die ist immer ruhig, immer da. Aber das Bewusstsein verändert sich. Kann verändern. Bewegt sich. Die Frage wäre, kann Bewusstsein, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, wenn der verändert sich, er kann nicht auch die Essenz ändern, weil die ist in der Bewegung. Ein anderer Gedanke, das ist für mich wichtig zu verstehen. Wenn das Bewusstsein verändert sich, sie verändert sich in unterschiedliche Richtungen. Das wir als negativ oder positiv oder wäre dann diese Veränderung eine Blockade für die Essenz. Wenn wir negativ oder das ist meine Frage. Ich weiß nicht,
So the question is, the essence seems to be unchanging and the consciousness is changing. So when the consciousness is operating in a negative way, is that blocking our access to the essence?
It is. It is blocking our access to the essence because we are trapped in this conscious view, conscious frame. Many people live all their lives trapped in their conscious view, not knowing how to get out. But by understanding and returning to the knowing aspect of your mind, you come out of that consciousness temporarily. And you notice what can happen. Your life can be different. Your perception can be different. Right, so yes, the conscious mind, the conscious aspect can cover up the knowing so that you don't realize it's there and you don't realize how beneficial it can be to recognize that knowing aspect. Okay? Any other questions? One more maybe?
ob die Essenzen alle gleiche sind. Oder sind die unterschiedlich für unser Bewusstsein? Unter uns. Unter unsere Essenzen und die Essenzen von einem Tier oder die Essenzen sind unterschiedlich oder gleich. Unter uns.
Is the essence in ourselves and the essence in animals the same or different?
The question is the essence, I would like to use the word knowing instead, okay? So the knowing, is it the same in animals or as ours, or is it different? Okay, it's the same in the sense that there's no qualitative difference. But your knowing is purely yours. My knowing is purely mine. It's purely my experience. It's purely your experience. But qualitatively, they are not different. Okay? It's not like your genes are different from my genes. Right? It's not like a king, social status different from a peasant. It's not like that. So the knowing qualitatively is exactly the same in every sentient being, but they are different. You know, it's not like I share the same knowing as a dog. No, it's not like that. It's different. Okay. All right. Why don't we stop here? And I hope to see you sometime in the future. Oh, one more thing I want to stress. One more thing I need to say is that the knowing is always in the present moment. Consciousness, we can think about the past, we can dwell in the past, we can dwell in the future, but the knowing always is in the present sense. It's always in the present. It's never anywhere else. It's always in the present. So, when you are aware, when you practice awareness to mindfulness, you start being the present moment. Being the present. Start in the present. Try to become aware of things that's going on, things that's happening. You can compare with what you did in the past, but your mind works in the present. And mindfulness means that you stay in the present as long as you can. Well, the reality is you cannot be anywhere else than in the present. But the consciousness fakes living in the past or living in the future. It's actually faking it. But you're always in the present. Okay?
On the question, what is the difference between, perhaps it is a problem of terminology, between knowing you always said is always there in every sentient being and the true nature?
Okay.
Difference in words or?
Yeah, so in Buddhism we also talk about true nature. Is the knowing the same as true nature or different? The knowing is the key. Recognizing the knowing is the key to understand our true nature. But I would not say that knowing is the true nature exactly yet, because you have to clear away the delusions in the consciousness in order to see the true nature in his full glory. Okay? So, but it's the key. It is the key.
So it's not about switching off the consciousness, but to clearing the kind of delusions, as you said.
Okay, so the question is not about switching off the consciousness. There are times when switching off the consciousness is good to help you stay in the present. So you stay in the present, you stay mindful in the present, and you temporarily switch off the consciousness because the consciousness disrupts, right?
Right.
So that's an important meditation practice. But you don't want to do that all the time because then you cannot react. So to use the conscious ability in the wrong way creates suffering or dukkha, unsatisfaction. When you use the conscious abilities in the right way, that is called wisdom. That is called wisdom. Okay? So without wisdom, you cannot help other people. One more.
The last one, I promise. When thinking of dreaming, because sometimes when we are dreaming, we don't know. Then I presume that is the consciousness is controlling us. But that is a time in we cannot control our dream. And hey, I know I'm dreaming, but please don't have that. How could we persuade the dreaming and try to stop it? Or
Okay, the question is about dreaming. When we dream, we don't seem to be able to control it. How do we control it or make it go away? You don't need to think about how to control it so much or make it go away. Dreams tend to reflect certain aspect about the inner state of our mind that we don't recognize. So sometimes dream can be useful in telling you about your mental state. I'm not in a like fortune telling way. That's not what I mean. What I mean is they are okay. Something I didn't talk about is subconscious. When we say consciousness in Buddhism, we are including what Western psychology calls conscious thoughts and subconscious. To us, that's all just consciousness. Okay? It's just some thoughts are too subtle to detect in our untrained mind. So that's our consciousness. So your subconscious may reflect some things, try to get something out, and it's represented in a very bizarre way in your dreams. So if you kind of look at your dream, it may help you realize some repressed ideas or feelings or something. Okay? I wouldn't say you need to, in Buddhism we don't really say you need to try to control your dreams. But you do want to exert control or practice mindfulness when you are awake. That's what's important. When you're awake, try to understand what your consciousness is doing. Try to practice mindfulness. And the better you can do this, the less bizarre your dreams may be. Okay? Because you clear away the trash in your consciousness. Okay, let's stop here and hope you learn something and remember and take it into your daily practice.